Thank you, Wesley. Can everyone hear me? All the mics are working? All right. So thank you for having me here tonight. I'm super excited to be here. It's always fun to get a chance to talk about your work and talk about it in venues that are different than we're used to talking about it, rather than clients or presentations to regulatory agencies. It's always exciting to talk to people that are just starting out in the design world. But that said, when the school approached me last spring about coming to do a talk, I honestly wasn't totally sure what it is that I wanted to talk about, because in so many ways, I'm just starting out in my own practice. I'm just starting out as a designer, working on my own and figuring things out. And we don't have a big body of built work to show. We're not academics in the discourse of architecture in a lot of ways. But as I was thinking about it, I thought that maybe the thing that could be most interesting is to talk about our process a little bit, what it is that we do, and the lessons that we've learned along the way. And as I was thinking about this, the main story that kept coming into my head was the story of this guy. And so this is Rudy. And a few of you might recognize Rudy because a documentary just came out about him last year called Sour Grapes. And so for those of you that haven't seen Sour Grapes, the story is basically this. Young guy, early 30s, wealthy kid, amazing wine palate. He was a guy that could go into a wine tasting and taste a flight of wines and nail every wine. He knew exactly where everything came from, the region it was from, the grapes it was made from, the years that the vintage was from. And so what Rudy started to do with this amazing wine palate is that he decided that he could start making these wines on his own. And not as a vintner, but start making these wines with his own special formulas. So what Rudy did was that he was drinking these really rare bottles of wine, and then he would take them home, peel off the labels, and then start mixing up his own concoctions to replicate even rarer wines. And so Rudy did this for years. He was selling millions and millions of dollars of wine. And it was a really good scam. He was doing a great job making money with this scam until he sold a couple $1 million worth of wine to the Koch brothers. And so the Koch brothers and their investigators found out that Rudy had been making up vintages that didn't exist. And so they turned him into the FBI, and when the FBI went to his house to kick in the door, and I should add here, went in to kick in the door, and they found out he lived with his mother out in Arcadia. And so they went in, kicked in his door at his mom's house, and they found boxes and boxes of labels, empty wine bottles. He was soaking the bottles to get the labels off, and he was using a chemistry to put together wines that some of the most sophisticated wine tasters in the world couldn't tell that they were fakes. And the thing that's really interesting to me about Rudy and his story is two things. One, it calls into question this thing that I think about all the time, which is, was the value of that wine the label, or was the value of that wine the thing that was inside? Was the value of the wine the quality of the thing that he was doing? And it's a question that I don't really have an answer to, but it's something that I think we think about a lot in our practice, which is, what's the value of the thing we're doing? And the second thing that's really interesting about Rudy, to me, is that he was our first client. And so we learned a lot from Rudy. And I think that one of the things that always stands out to me about him is that the first time that we met him, much like meeting a lot of clients, we went into this meeting not really knowing what to expect. We knew he was a kind of a rock star in the wine world, but that didn't mean much to us because I don't know a lot about wine. But so we went into this meeting, and the first thing that Rudy asks is, he says, "What kind of architect are you?" And that seems like it would be a really easy question to answer, but it's really not. When you're starting out, you don't really know what you are yet. You don't know where you fit into this world of design and architecture, and I kind of froze on it. I didn't really have that immediate answer, and I think I probably defaulted to, we're modern architects, because that's kind of the catch-all for people that are practicing today. And so, for me, the answer to that question is very different now. And when people ask it today, there's still a bit of, I don't know yet. We're still figuring that out. But in a lot of ways, for me, it's about our process and about authenticity. And, the story of Rudy and the things that we learned from him, I think in a lot of ways, was that it didn't really matter to me at the end of the day. I mean, it mattered that he went to jail because he's a criminal, and we lost a job. But the thing that I always think about is that I never really cared about what the vintage was or how expensive the bottle that we were drinking was when we would go out to dinners. It was the experience. It was the flavors in these wines that were really amazing, unlike anything that I've ever had a chance to taste. And I didn't really care that, these were replicas. These were things that he was replicating from his memory. And I think that's an issue that we sort of deal with all the time in design. Is it a replica? Is it the original? Is the replica or the thing that comes out after the original, is it as powerful? And I think in a lot of ways, the things that follow can be as powerful or even more powerful. Some of the signs that were carried around in some of the women's marches recently are incredibly powerful images. And I don't think that takes away from the original Hope poster or it takes away from the new thing. I think that it's okay to understand that the things that we do aren't always 100% new. It always sort of comes from another place. And these images and ideas that are conveyed in these things are really powerful. And I think understanding the power of image is something that's really important today because, as we've seen in very recent history, an image of the same thing can mean entirely different things to different people. And the image and the vantage point from which it's taken can be used in a lot of different ways. And so vantage point, I think, is another, it's a thing that we'll talk about more as we go through this talk, but it becomes really important because vantage point can tell very different stories with the things that we're doing. And so imagery and the power of imagery is really important all through the world, but in architecture, it's not necessarily this new idea. When Julius Schulman took the photos of the Stahl House on the left and the Kaufmann House on the right, he was telling stories. He was creating these iconic images that told the story of the modern ideal or the materiality of modernism or what it was to live this luxurious lifestyle in Palm Springs. And these images, in a lot of ways, led to something that I think is happening a lot in design today, and that is that we've become overly focused on the image of the thing. We've become focused on this, like the idea, you hear it all the time, like what's the money shot? What's the rendering we're gonna show that's gonna be most impressive? Or what are we designing towards? Is it just this view or is it the holistic thing? And so I don't know that these are really new ideas or new challenges in architecture, but I think that the battle that we fight is that, with these images, when these images came out, you had to wait months or years to see it. And today, rather than it going into a monograph that you could read about the project and see the photos in, we're constantly bombarded with imagery. And in a lot of ways, I think that Instagram is replacing the monograph, that we have entire practices that are built, practices of design and architecture and interior design, industrial design, that are built just on the images that we see and the brief stories that we tell through social media. And I don't know that it's a bad thing or a good thing. I think it's just the context that we're working in today. And I think that it's beyond images, and it's about ideas. And ideas have become more efficient in so many ways. It can be, the 10 books of architecture, could that be boiled down to 10 tweets of 127 characters? And I don't know if, again, this is a good thing or a bad thing, but it does set this context. It sets the context in which we work, and it's ultimately the context in which we started our own practice. And so within that context, for me, it's really about, what are we about? And so when we started out, it was 2008. It was absolutely the worst possible time that I can remember in my life for the economy. But it turns out it was a really amazing time to start a business because it was a time where you had to fight tooth and nail to do anything. And so the lessons from that time are lessons we really apply today. But we made a decision very early on that what was most important to us was to build and to learn through building. We weren't going to be an office that was about academic pursuit or about going out and hiring PR and marketing firms. We wanted to be about learning from building, and really, honestly, we say, if you build it, you build the business. And so much of our work came from the fact that we were finishing projects in this period when there just wasn't a lot happening. So at our core, it was about building, it was about craft, and it was about this idea of the aux cable and the aux connection. That if you're nimble and you're ready for anything, you can take any opportunity and run with it. Because we're architects by training, but in so many ways, we love art, and we consider ourselves artists, and we would love to do industrial design at another level, and furniture design. And so really, aux is a label for all kinds of design and thinking. And that's really what we set out to do, was to say, we're going to take on any task that we can do, no matter how big or small, and just try to do something cool with it. And that's just really about our own curiosity and trying to do cool things. And ultimately, it's about trying to do things that are beautiful, trying to do things that are really pure and express the sort of purity of design that we're sort of seeking in the work that we do. And so, where that really starts for us conceptually is, at the inside of the building. In so many ways, we talk a lot about this in our work, that the thing that's inside is so much more important than the thing that we do on the outside. And I think a lot of architecture today, it's become this additive endeavor. It's become, you create the box, and then it's the thing that you apply to the outside of it. And we've tried really hard with all of our design to focus on just the purity of the space and not adding things that can easily be removed. And it's this idea that if that piece was taken off the building, is it still a good piece of architecture? And if your building is dependent on that thing that's sort of tacked onto the side, is it still successful? And so, it's that, and this just understanding that with, like the Michael Heiser piece, that a really simple incision, a really simple spatial move can be incredibly powerful. That it doesn't have to be this sort of grandiose thing. It can be really simple, or to affect a surface with tire tracks or walking in the sand can be a really powerful thing. And so, these are the ideas and the things that we're drawn to. And so for us, it's really about, all right, these are the things we love. How do we accomplish that? How do we explore these ideas? And so it kind of goes back to the beginning and where you start out and where you come from. And so for me, I moved to LA, and my first job was in the model shop at Frank Gehry's office. And I worked on the Marquez de Riscal winery, building this incredible model it's about 7 feet wide by, probably 3 feet tall. And as we were building it, one of the things that the more senior people in the office would always say is that the model doesn't lie. The model, if it stands in the model, it stands in reality. You can't fake things with the physical model. And so from Gehry's office, I went on to work at Daily Genic, which was a spinoff from Gehry's office. And it was the same methodology, studying form quickly with study models, and then gradually refining more and more those projects to come to the ultimate design. And oftentimes, like the top left image, the end result that we showed to the client was the physical model. And it was something you could get down around and look at. It wasn't just a singular image that you were focused on. You really interacted with the thing. And so, these were important lessons. And they're important lessons that we use in our office today. And, we still build a fair amount of physical models because it is an important and powerful tool. But more and more, out of a necessity for speed or budget or just for sake of iteration, we're using computer software to do the things that we were once doing with physical models. And to do that, there's a series of rules that we put in place to ensure that we're looking at it the right way, that we're not distorting things. And so, it's sort of working now sort of seamlessly in and out of both physical and digital realm, and prototyping and doing study models, both physical and digital. And actually, I do have to stop for 2 seconds. In the back, the gold chalice there, that's the Architectural Softball League Championship trophy. Had 4 wins, I think only a couple against you though. 1 year, one victory in, 15 years? Well, it's hard to keep track. Ed's a great player and a good friend. And so you do realize that slide is only in there to point to the trophy in the background. Are you sure you want to go on? I'm enjoying talking about this and seeing you shift around. How's the leg coming along too? You're going to be ready for, oh, sorry, too soon. And so to the rules about how we're using the computer model, the rule that I said before with the physical model doesn't lie. There's a truth to it that we don't have in the computer. The computer can really distort things. And we try to be really careful about knowing when we're trying to make an image more dramatic for a pitch on the design versus ensuring that we're using it in a way that we know that we're getting the end result that we expect at the end of the day. And so, really simple rules like, all right, you can't use a camera angle with a ratio more than 35 to 50 at what the human eye sees versus going to like 15, what makes a wall look like it's 90 feet longer than it really is in reality. And the other thing is finding ways to get the digital model out of the computer. Because one of the things about the physical models is that there were things that sat in our offices. There were things that we interacted with, that the entire office sort of moved around and knew about and engaged with. And so one of the things that we do in our office is every day or every week, anytime there's a major milestone in a project, the team pins up screen captures of the model. And this is so it's out in the office, and so people are engaged with the projects that they're not working on, because a lot of times ideas come from people that aren't directly working in the project, and when it's tucked away and it's a person standing there or sitting at their computer only working on it, people don't know what they're doing. You get a glimpse, but it's not there, it's not in the consciousness of the office. So we make a really conscious effort to have these things out in the office, and we encourage people to react to projects that they're not working on for a lot of reasons. I mean, because good ideas can come from anywhere, but I think it's also that not all the projects in the office are the big flashy fun one. And so we want everyone in the office to feel like they're working on every project that's happening, that their role on something else is a part of this other thing happening. And that's really just this idea of team that's really important to us. But aside from that, we're really using the software and the digital models to do the same thing that we always did, to do the same thing that we did with the physical models. And that's cutting out blocks, looking at schemes, laying out different variations on an idea. And where the software is really beneficial to us is we can now do 10, 15 of these in a day. And if this was a physical model, you'd be lucky if you got through 1 or maybe 2 in a day. And so the speed that it affords us is something that is super beneficial and allows us to look at a lot of things in a much faster way than we were, and I'm not that old, but I mean, just like a decade ago. The transition has been really amazing. And it's really cool to try to apply these same lessons that we learned with the physical stuff into the digital realm. The other thing that is really important to us in the software and the digital models allows us to do is it allows us to look at material options and surfaces in a much more precise way than we ever were before. And I think that is something that the physical models always failed at. You always had the one corrugated basswood panel that you could use to replicate some sort of surface change in a building. And so for us, the material shifts and the interplay of surfaces and textures and material is super important to us. And so we looked at a lot of options, and it allows us to test out a lot of different things really quickly. Literally, if we like a wood surface or a tile surface or a stone surface, we can throw it in there, check it out, see how it looks, see what the scale of the panelization is. And these are all really amazing things that are really, really important to the work that we do, because it's really important to us, not just the sort of exterior envelope of the building, but also the interior. I think that there's been this disconnect in a lot of ways with architecture, where it's become so specialized that many architects just sort of consider themselves like core and shell guys. Like, we just do the envelope and then somebody else comes in and does the interior. And so for us, it's really important, that connection of inside and out. And so the materiality really is an important thing to us. And so is lighting. And with the digital models, we're able to look at variations really quickly, look at different times of day and night to see how a building's going to glow, to think about how surfaces are going to be illuminated. And so these are all things that are really powerful tools that we use every single day within our studio. And then finally, and this hasn't changed much from the hand drafting days, but the last step is really doing the working drawings and doing really precise, really high quality drawings. And I know this is kind of a weird thing to talk about in an academic setting, but it's a really crucial and important part of what we do, because design decisions don't just stop at the rendering. They carry through the entire project. And so it's, I think, really important that we don't make this separation between design architects and technical architects. We want the best designers in our office making decisions at every level, in plan, in section, and in detail. Because it's ultimately in these details that the building really comes together. You can have a grand vision and represent something with a beautiful image, but if the detail's not there, so much is lost. And so, that's kind of the method. And, you kind of know these things and you learn them as you go, but it really comes down to, does it work? And does the process get you where you want to go? And so within our practice, we've done a lot of different projects. We've worked on everything from dog houses to boutique hotels. We do a lot of high-end single-family residential, but we also do we're doing more and more sports work, and we do a lot of work at the airports, a lot of work at LAX and Dulles. This is a little retail stand in the middle next to the baseball field that we did underneath the shell of the Eero Saarinen space at Dulles, which was maybe the most amazing site that we ever got to work in. And so the scale has really grown and shifted, but the ideas and the methodology has been pretty consistent. And so tonight I really want to focus on the sort of opportunities and the moments that were sort of most important to us along the way, the things we learned from most, and the good and the bad, but and just to sort of give you a glimpse into how we think. And so, every office really has their first big opportunity. Obviously, we had Rudy as a client, but our first thing that really got noticed that projected us into the next sort of scale of work was a crappy house up in the Hollywood Hills. And my business partner's wife literally responded to a post on Facebook for somebody looking for an architect to work on this house that her and her boyfriend, who's a rock star, had just moved into. And it was a beat up place. It had been lived in by, a number of celebrities over the years and just really run down. And, they basically came to us with this really simple thing. They said, we love to throw parties. And the problem is that the kitchen is on the other side of the house from the pool. Can you design us a pool bar? It was really just that simple. And so we went to work, kind of looking at, what it is that would be a cool bar, a cool transition piece between the pool and the inner part of the house. And we study things with a lot of variations, looking at different material qualities and surface interactions. And we were working through this process, and it was this sort of inevitable thing that happens with especially residential work, that it went from, oh yeah, we need a bar, to, well, this is the pool bar, we really got to look at the pool. So we started to look at options for the pool, how we could do a jacuzzi within the footprint of it. And, a lot of different variations. And, unfortunately, with some of the earlier projects, we don't have as much of the documentation for the process, but, we went through a lot of iterations, and, this became a project that we worked on for about 5 years. We'd finish one thing and we'd sort of move on to the next, but it was really about, like literally getting in there and just going for it and doing, literally the dirty work when you had to try to, illustrate that, no, this wall, we can take it out and the retaining wall is not going to fall over. And so then ultimately, this project which was a, really a series of little installations kind of came together. And, it's a modest thing, but we learned a lot of lessons about how do you get, a lot of impact with a little move. And so, looking from the living room out, we had this really ugly wall and waterfall at one point. And so it really became about how do you create something that has some rhythm, that has some meaning to a musician that's living in the house. And, the interplay of surfaces and extending out that deck to get a little bit more area. And it was, in a lot of ways, just this really simple little project that kept expanding. But materiality and surface, and these ideas that are really important through our work today, so many of those ideas were in this little job. The play of light on surface. Just really simple interlock of two materials, stone and tile turning up a wall, interlocked with, a white drywall. Interlock of stone and tile. And really, this space is about experience in some ways. To get up in the morning and to be able to get ready with the view. There's, obviously a bit of voyeurism involved too, but. And then just really simple moves and the power of a simple incision, like the Michael Heiser sculpture. How can you create something dramatic with one really simple move? And so I always really loved this space because it was just about this one cut and then a material shift at the fireplace. And then obviously it's for a musician, so you got to get the music room in there, which coincidentally is the coolest part of this house, because the last time I was there, Black Flag was jamming and just hanging out, which was pretty amazing. And then, the job crept to the outside, and then, really so much of this was about, back to the sort of the image of Petra, that sometimes what you take away is more important than what you add to it, that you don't have to add a lot. You just strip away the junk that you don't need. And so it really was just cleaning this thing up. And then there was also a bar. And so the bar it turned into this really simple cabinet that could fold out of the way when they were just on a day-to-day basis, but when they had a party, you could fold it out of the wall. And just a really simple, clean thing. And so, this job was a small thing, in the grand scheme of things, but what it afforded us was the opportunity for this. And that was to hang out our shingle. And it seems silly, and we would have never anticipated it at the time, but the fact that we were able to put our sign out at a time where nothing else was getting built was what the entire practice really built on, is that people literally, as the economy was improving, people started driving by and seeing that somebody was doing some construction. And well, we can start to think about that too. And we literally started to get phone calls from our sign. And it never ceases to amaze me that so much of our practice came from people calling that number on that sign. And so just a couple examples of some of the houses. So this is up in Doheny Estates. And so it's right at the north of Sunset, kind of going up above the Whiskey A Go-Go. And so from that top point, the top vantage point on Doheny, which is the top right house, we've done 5 houses just right in that little stretch. And all of that really came from that one little project. And I think that so much of it was about, at that time, being willing to take the risk, even on a little thing, and the reward is still paying dividends today. And it's paying in a lot of ways that we didn't really think about or expect. And the biggest one was really that we were all of a sudden sort of valid, and we'd proven that we could do it. And once you prove you can do it, people believe in you. And just a simple thing like that makes all the difference in the world. And so one of the contractors that had looked at that house when we were doing one of our phases sort of took note of what we were doing, admired our drawings, admired the design of it. And when his friends went to remodel their house, he said, you know what, I think that these guys would be a good option for you. They're really young, they're really hungry, they're doing really cool things. And so we got this call kind of out of the blue, and this was for a house in Mandeville Canyon. It was a ranch-style house from the 1950s that sat literally right on the street, and busy street, a lot of car traffic, a lot of bicyclists, but it's a really prominent corner. And I think it was an opportunity for us again to get to do something in kind of a busy intersection that people would take notice of. And so we started into this job, still kind of fleshing out the process, but ultimately sort of looking at this house and realizing, as we had conversations with the homeowners, that they actually really liked the way that the house functioned. And so rather than tearing the house down, we started to say, it works pretty well. Maybe we can strip away the stuff that you don't like and do a couple really simple additions to it that gets you the space that you need. And so really the hearth of this house, the sort of center of this house, is the pool. And so the corner in the bottom left is Mandeville Canyon and Herd Place. And that becomes the sort of main sort of entry point to the house, into a family living wing. And then the secondary functions for the kitchen and laundry room are sort of tucked off to the garage. And then to the top of the drawing is all the bedrooms. And so it really became about, all right, the building works pretty well. It doesn't need a ton to it. It just needs sort of a new aesthetic. And so we started to study how we could modify the building and really transform it with material, with the shifting of mass, in the folding out of surfaces to define new spaces. And so we went through a lot of variations on it, and looked at a number of things, including, this faceted scheme that sort of folded out from underneath the roof line of the house. And ultimately, in conversation with the family, the kind of a modest couple, really great couple, they said, you know what, we're just a little more simple than that. And that's fine, because I think that dialogue with your clients is really important, and that dialogue to come to an end result is a really important thing. And so we backed up a step and we said, all right, what's the most important thing with this house? And it really was this sort of interlock of the common shared spaces with the guest house, which was going to be on the garage in the back, the two-story portion, and the bedroom wings. And so just this really simple idea that we can have a few masses that sort of interlock to create just this really simple composition of things. And so the material palette was two materials. It was cement board that we cut away to expose different cut surfaces and different colors and textures, and then just white stucco. And that play sort of wraps around the house and interlocks, really to sort of preserve the thing that was best about this house, which was this interior courtyard space that was tucked away off of the main road, and really just this really beautiful sanctuary, which was the thing that they were drawn to initially. And then, really simple things like big sliders that allow us to really reinforce this sort of inside-outside connection that's so important to life in Southern California. The weather is so good so much of the year that it's really unfortunate that we make these barriers so solid. I mean, we always try to break down those barriers and make it feel like nature is really coming inside the building. And then the disintegration of hardscape, taking the pattern of the concrete tiles and pulling them apart. That way there's a blurred line between the natural and the man-made, and the overlap of surfaces, inside spilling out into outside. And then ultimately framing out of the rooms nature, making it so the sanctuary is not just on the outside, but that sanctuary is pulled to the inside. And this is the master suite looking out into the gardens. The interlock and the quality of light throughout the house. Just really light and bright surfaces, making the most of small spaces. And then really attention to detail and cabinetry and the interplay of materials on the inside. Interior design and light fixtures. Again, the interlocking motif. Master bath with just a few simple materials that interlock at different scales. And then the guest suite and office. And so, this job, although we started it a long time ago, we've actually just started construction in the last 6 months. And so it's really exciting to see these things mature and grow and change and come from a sketch into a living thing. And so it's always an amazing thing. And it's really important to us that we try to rotate, because a lot of people work on these things over the years. And so we always make sure that everyone gets an opportunity to go out and see these things come together, because it's really the most exciting part, where you start to see your vision come to life. The master bedroom. The weird pitched roof thing in the back's not us. And then the incisions that carry through corners and carry through the building mass to define some of these overlaps. And then ultimately, this is always exciting to me, is actually looking like the thing that you've been working on. And that's why it's so important as we work through the computer models that we're always sort of considering that and thinking about it, ensure that it actually turns out the way that we expect. So the next job is also a renovation project. This one is up in Malibu off of Stunt Road. Previously, most of our renovation jobs had been in much more urban conditions. And so this job was really exciting for us because it's just this really beautiful site. It's one of those sites that you really feel like there's nothing you can do to sort of screw it up other than make it so you can't see the view. And that's why it was so amazing when we got up to this house that we realized that all the windows of the existing house were so tiny. And so on this job, sometimes the process goes really quickly. Sometimes it's really easy to identify the issue with it. And on this job, it was really about how do we capture what is most powerful about this site, and that is the setting in the mountains and the seclusion and the view. And so it turns out to be a renovation project, but it actually initially was intended to be a ground-up house. And how we ended up in a renovation job was that as we were doing the soils engineering and looking at the property, we realized that the entire hillside that the house was on was a prehistoric landslide. And so, in dealing with the county and figuring out what we could do there, we realized that it was pretty likely that we were going to have to go around with soldier piles around the entire edge of the property and basically restrain this entire hillside, which was going to cost millions of dollars and also ultimately take us years, if not decades, to get through. And so the agreement that we came to with the county and also with our client was that, look, you like the house as it is. Maybe what it needs is, again, to be stripped back. It's about what we take out, and it's about opening it up, and it's about light. And so we really quickly came to the realization so much of this was about just stripping off the finish, getting to a more modern sort of aesthetic, and opening up the house in a way that allowed you to see nature and see the views and sort of have an appreciation for the things that are around you in a different way. And so what we did is we basically worked within the existing building footprint, the existing roof lines of the house, and started cutting things away. And that cutaway was something that we talk about a lot and we express a lot, where we sort of thought of the existing building as this mass that had been sort of cut and shifted. And so on those shifted planes, we made that transition to wood. And so it's the black liner and then all the cutaway surfaces of the wood. And again, just sort of opening the thing up, making it into a space that sort of bled inside outside. And so those exterior materials, again, to this idea that materiality shouldn't live in just one environment, it became about how do we take these materials, carry them from the outside of the building to the inside, and then disintegrate them in ways that compositionally had relationships to the windows and that allowed us to bounce a lot of light off the surfaces. And this is ultimately what we're building today. And again, the renderings are actually pretty true to the views that we have. It's just really clean, simple space with really rich, warm materials. in Mad Max. Master bedroom that had 2 4x4 windows in it that you couldn't see the view at all. So cutting away the corner of the building and just letting nature sort of come into the space. In interior design, we, like I'd mentioned before, the interiors are really important to us. And so in our studio of 10 people, we have a full-time person dedicated just to finding new materials and rich materials and products and fixtures and things that really activate our space. Because so much of the experience of the space is the knob that you touch or the surface that you brush against or the texture of the material on your feet when you take a shower. And so that's a really important part of this house and all of our work. And this is photos from last week, the house coming together. They framed that wall wrong, that gets cut down. And so, you know, we've done a lot of renovation house projects over the years, but we've had some opportunities to work on bigger things. And in our entry into that world came in a pretty strange way. And it came with a weird project that a developer that I've known for years came to us with down in Harbor City, down by Torrance. He had just bought this really strange piece of land in a neighborhood that wasn't so great. And like a lot of projects in Los Angeles, a firm or an architect or an engineer will get a project entitled, they'll design it to a certain point, and then the project will get sold. And so our client bought this property, and it had a design for it. And he came to us, he said, hey, I know you haven't done any townhouse condo projects before, but would you like the opportunity? And we jumped at it. Multifamily is something that, you know, I love to do. It's a different scale of building. We were really excited about the opportunity for it. And it was just like this really exciting opportunity, and we were so psyched to have something so big. And the only problem with this project was that it looked like this when we got it. And there's nothing wrong with Spanish-style buildings. When they're done right, they're really amazing things. But it's not really our thing, and it wasn't really our core competency. But we knew the ends justified the means, that doing this was going to get us to a place that we wanted to go, and a jump in scale that we really wanted to get to. So we took it on. We sort of said, you know what, we're going to forget our egos for a minute. We're going to forget what it is that we think we need to be doing, and we're just going to do this. We're going to do it as a learning experience. We're going to do it as an opportunity. And so we said, all right, let's make the most of it. And so we started out really simply, just saying, all right, how do we make the spaces just incrementally better, just a little bit better than they were? The original floor plan was really chopped up. It was a lot of spaces that didn't have a lot of natural light. And so again, by removing some of those things that we didn't need, we were able to get to floor plans that were really open, had lots of natural light, and were much more modern and sort of cool and livable in the way that we sort of look for. And then literally just applying that module across the 7-unit and the 3-unit building. And just, it was a really simple exercise. And so as we're going through this process, a lot of what we do is we educate our clients and we talk to them about ideas. And so in this job, as we were going through the floor plan, we sort of incrementally were like kind of putting it in the ear of our client that, maybe we should try something just a little bit different. And then one day we were down at the site and I said, look, I think the biggest problem you have here is that Western, as it goes by, people drive like 50, 60 miles an hour. And in this neighborhood, I just don't think people are going to notice that this thing is here. And the building sat behind this weird strip mall. And I said, give us a chance to do something a little different. Give us a chance to do something that's a little more site specific and that responds to this really busy street. And he was really hesitant to do it. And a lot of that is because so often people get so set in a mindset that is, this is how we do things, this is how we always do things, and we do it this way because it's successful for us. And it's really hard to convince people otherwise? When they've been successful in a certain thing, why would you ever change it? And so it's a tough thing to get people out of that mindset. But ultimately, the conversation came down to, I said, you know what? I think you're leaving money on the table. I think people like clean, modern space more than you think. And that wasn't a conversation that he just sort of said, yeah, I think you're right, let's do it. But it was that I believed it, that I really fundamentally believed that something cleaner, something a little more modern was going to be more successful, and that good design always is recognized. And so he said, all right, I'll let you try some stuff, but here's the deal. It can't cost a nickel more than the stucco box we were talking about. And so we went to work on a series of elevations of stucco and cement board box. It turned out that there was literally only one other material that we could get that could go in as cheap as the stucco. And so we started to play with some pretty bad elevations initially, and then started to break that down in different patterns and different scales that would have some response to the site, that would have some impact from Western and the people driving by. And this went through literally thousands of iterations, and ultimately started to work from the 2D drawings and studies into studies in the three-dimensional model of this pattern that sort of worked at two different scales. There was sort of the macro scale that were these bands of white and gray that read sort of like fence posts as you drive by, and you sort of like read that pattern in different ways. And then it also started to work at a micro scale that within each of these bands of paneling, we made this really subtle shift. That way, from a distance, the building had one appearance, but as you got close, you started to read a different level of detail. And so we worked through this, and despite the risk and the concern on their part, we got this thing built. In so many ways, it's the same basic footprint and massing as the original thing, but it's a very different sort of image and aesthetic than what we originally started with. And so just with this really subtle shift in the siding, we were able to do, again, not the most grandiose thing, but something sort of interesting, something a little different than what this guy was used to doing. And you always have to have a Volkswagen Bug in at least one photograph in a lecture. And the Goodyear blimp. It's very close to Carson. And so, this job was, it was a big thing for us because one, it again, like that first house, it showed people that we could work at a different scale. But I think more importantly than that, we were right in our assumptions. The developer, and developers are driven by money in a lot of ways, but the developer, he said, the target for each of these units, which are about 2,000 square feet, was about $350,000 per unit. And when it was all said and done, they sold these for about $550,000, $600,000 per. And if you're going to convince a developer to do something a little different, that's basically the way you do it. And so it was super successful, and it worked on all the levels we talked about. And it ultimately did a lot of the things that we talked about all along. And, the neighbors, they talk about it as the striped building, and it is this really striking thing as you drive down Western. And so, this developer, on our success of making him a little bit more money by doing something a little more modern, he brought us another job that he bought that was pre-designed. And so this one was 4 acres up off of Mulholland near Woodland Hills. And it was a subdivision taking 4 acres and dividing it into single acre lots with a 7,000 foot house on each of them. And it looked something basically like this. And again, I'm sure they were fine houses, but wasn't really our thing. And so we started to talk to him again. We said, hey, the last one worked pretty well. Like, we made you some more money, right? And he sort of said, yeah, begrudgingly, maybe there's something to this more modern stuff, and the floor plans being open, lots of glass and the materials we were using. And I said, look, I'll make you a deal. We're dividing this into four parcels. why don't you give us a shot at one of the houses? We do whatever we want. He said, all right, I'm gonna give you a shot. You get to design one house the way you want it, one house the way I absolutely want it. Well, actually, two houses the way I want it. One has to be Cape Cod, one has to be Mediterranean style. I'll let you do one that's kind of transitional, and then one of the lots, I'll let you do something completely modern, an open floor plan. And he then gave us the most complicated, steep, difficult site to work with for the modern house, which was the most amazing part of it because it was so steep, we had to address the context in a different way. In order to keep the building underneath the building heights, the max building heights in the area, we had to create this aesthetic or this massing of these blocks that sort of offset and step their way up the hill. And this terrified him because he thought, when this goes to the design review and goes to the community, they're going to hate it. And as it turns out, we got it into the community meeting, we got it in front of the design review board, and as it turns out, the two houses they liked the best were the modern one and the one that was kind of transitional. And so it was this real lesson in just believing in what you do and that you can be successful at it. And so not only did the design review board like the ones that we did better and the way they were contextual, we're currently redesigning the other two to be more modern. And so along the lines of these lessons you learn along the way, one of the things when I was working for Kevin Daly, he used to say was this saying, never draw more in the morning than you can erase in the afternoon. And I always took that as, don't get too far ahead of yourself, I'm going to change what it is I told you to do this morning. But I think the lesson in this really is that you set out with good intentions or a thought process or a plan for things. In a lot of ways, it's the process that drives the project. And the projects can go in really weird, interesting directions that you never anticipated. And the next job is really that one for us. It's a beautiful site. And so again, a lot of the work early on was sort of smaller. And this job was one that was kind of our first opportunity to have just, like the big ocean view Malibu house. And so it was a really beautiful site up in the north of Malibu by the Malibu Village you see off to the left. And so it was up in the mountains, so you had really great mountain views, amazing ocean views, and actually a relatively flat site. And so the thing that was most interesting, I think, you don't want to become too much of a slave to the site, but the thing that was most interesting about this project was that the client was a Chinese family of 4 sisters. 2 of the sisters live here in the Los Angeles area, and the other 2 live in China and operate the manufacturing for their business here in the US. And so they came to us and said, look, we want you to build us a house that the entire family can come together in, which was like an amazing, almost like school project kind of program. All right, we've got 4 families. They want to have some independence, but they also want to have this house where the entire family can come together for big gatherings. And so in so many ways, it was like a little boutique hotel. And so, several years back, I had the opportunity to do some work in China, and I learned a lot about the sort of traditional hutong house. And the hutong was basically a series of 4 houses that are interconnected for a multi-generational family that open up onto a single courtyard that is the shared common space. And so when we started to talk to them, we said, really this is going to be this really modern hutong. And that was an idea that they really loved. They said, they didn't want something traditional, but, our riff on that idea was what they were really looking for. And so we went to work sort of looking at this as a series of pods, that each family had a master suite, a secondary bedroom, a little living area, and, a common area within their little loft space that allowed them to, make a little meal or have some privacy. So we looked at this in a lot of different variations to create courtyards, to create slippages or open up things to views. And so this was really the driver. Like, all right, how do we do a house that you get the view, you also get the courtyard? It's sort of, the challenge was getting all these things into one property that was really going to be a directional building that really wanted to look out towards the view. And the other sort of complexity to the site was that in Los Angeles County, in the Malibu area, you're required to do an environmental review, which is a really great thing. The preservation of the environment is really important to us. And so we had our initial environmental review done. The county biologist came out and he said, look, there's basically this riparian area, and it comes together like a Y, and you have to stay 100 feet away from it. And so that really it took away a lot of the site and kind of pushed us into the one corner, which unfortunately was a little close to the adjacent building, the neighbor's house. But we said, all right, we'll make the most of it. We'll make this thing work. And so we went to work putting these pods, these blocks, into different configurations and trying to figure out the best sort of scenario for this modern Hutong village. And some of the schemes, a little weird, a little wild, but very cool, until we ultimately arrived at this basic scheme, which was with the magenta, the pink block. It was all the common spaces, the living room and the kitchen, and all the spaces the family would share together. And then the yellow block was a 2-story pod that had the shared family space for a single family on the ground floor, and then the bedrooms above, looking out to the view over the top of that lower common area building. And so we took the roof of that, we made it into a green roof. That way it didn't feel like you were looking onto the roof of your neighbor's building. And we pushed ahead with this and started looking at the next level of detail, what these private courtyards would be like, how they would open up to the pool area and open up out to the views of the ocean. And we went through a lot of iteration as we do on this, and ultimately came to amassing a little bit like this. It's south facing, so the sun control was a big part of the project, and so we were looking at these huge shade structures that could block out the sun. And then we got hit with something we didn't really expect, which was the opportunity to learn about feng shui. And I have to admit that when the family brought it up, I sort of winced and thought, I don't know how all this works. But again, it was sort of like putting ego aside and saying, let's think about the opportunity to learn about something new. Let's be curious and find out a little bit about something we don't know anything about. And so we said, yeah, let's do it. Let's try it and let's see where it takes us. And so we broke out the feng shui compass, and we talked to each of the sisters about which coordinates were the ones that they most wanted for their particular pod. And that became this really interesting form driver for the project, because 2 of the sisters wanted prosperity, the other one wanted happiness, and another was long life. And so by sort of taking that compass and working through the coordinates and the sort of the lifestyle wishes of those different coordinates, we were able to use it to generate some really interesting forms, and then ultimately come to a configuration that we wouldn't have had before. Sorry, this is a little bit distorted for some reason, but what we ended up with was basically 2 courtyards. A courtyard that was gardens and places to grow food for 2 of the sisters, and a courtyard that was more open and then opened up to the water for the other 2. And that linkage then became this great room where the entire family could come together and share in the space. And then garage plan that's a little distorted we can go through. And so working through the massing of this, it really became about how do we have equitable views and equitable space for everyone, because by nature, the corner suite is always going to be kind of the nicest one. And so we looked at using, sort of a mass for the bathrooms and the closets to focus views out. And then that sort of led itself into like, how do you minimize the block that's in the front? That way everyone can see out over the top of this thing. And so what we did is we pushed that sort of the common area down a little bit, and then stepping the building up the hill, we brought up the mass in the back. That way the entire building looks out over the top of it. Feng Shui also gives you the opportunity to put water right at the entry, which is also really cool. And so we were looking at doing this really amazing. It was a 14,000 square foot concrete house. We were pretty far along into it, just starting to look at the materiality of the concrete and how we could affect that texture. We could affect the concrete in different ways with different textures. And we came back to this thing. And so where we initially thought that our habitat that needed to be protected, in the spring, the county biologist was driving through and noticed a bloom of wild grasses that fell basically right in the footprint of our building. And, as something that's protected, it was something we had to steer clear of. And so it threw the project into a completely different direction. The family loved the site and they were still really committed to it. And so we started to look at, all right, how do we fit this building in to a really constrained footprint? How do we work around the grasses, which were in the pink, the oak trees, which were the green with the red dot, and sort of bending around some of the other protected things that we see in this diagram. And so we ended up basically looking at the ecology as, a form generator, the same way we were with the feng shui initially. And we worked through a number of iterations on this, trying to create that sort of equitable space that we were shooting for with the original design. But ultimately, it wasn't really working. We were really trying to force it. And so, the tough thing with it was that the house that they wanted, they couldn't really do there. And so, we said, look, there's a lot of properties out there. We're going to go and find you a new one. Why don't we'll do a fancy house on the site and sell it, and then we'll use the money to build you this dream house. And so we started to look at, a building much like we did before that had a footprint that was substantially smaller, not sprawling out quite as much over the site, but that fit in between those zones that were protected that we needed to stay away from. And so, being contextual and in the same sort of way that we looked at that chapter drive site with the modern house and the other traditional ones, what we did is we started to look at, all right, let's bury the things that don't need light and then sort of work our way up to living spaces where we can bring in a lot of light and look out over a reflecting pool out to the ocean, and then bedrooms at the top. And so for the site, because it was so steep, it really became, again, about this motif of staggering the blocks and sort of responding to the topography and staying underneath the envelope that we needed to. And so this is coming up the driveway into a carport and then the garage. And the middle mass is the common living spaces and bedrooms above. And so really, what was a huge project that we were really sad to see go has turned into another really beautiful project that we're very proud of. And so it's all to say that you can't get so devastated when things don't go your way that you just sort of like throw your hands in the air and give up. And that's the view out of the foyer, out across the reflecting pool. And so the last couple projects I want to show you are really about the shift in scale that's happened within the office in the last couple of years, going from mostly residential jobs into a little bit larger buildings, a lot of multifamily. And as the office has grown and you have a lot more projects that are similar in topology and similar in scale, one of the things that becomes really difficult is how you continue to be unique, how you continue to do things that are a little bit different each time. That way it has its own identity. And these two projects that I'm showing here side by side, these are two 4-unit townhouse projects. The top one in Burbank and the bottom one in Glendale. And these projects, very similar scale sites. The proportions are very similar. The size of the buildings are very similar. And we ended up, even though we went through a number of different iterations and configurations for the site, we ended up with two buildings that essentially had the same site plan strategy. And that was taking this block of the townhouse and shifting it back and forth to create something that a lot of apartments and housing in Southern California doesn't have, and that's a little garden area, a little yard area. And so the strategy worked really well, but we didn't want to do the same thing twice. And so with each of these, we looked at it as, all right, we can have the same site plan strategy, but the ultimate building massing needs to have some difference in identity. And that was really, again, in response to this condition that we have, this urban condition that we have in a lot of cities, which is you're looking out at the neighbor building. And so what we wanted to do is find ways to, again, get greenery, get landscape into the buildings, more engaged and more close to where people live in the spaces they occupy. So this is the first site. This is in Burbank. Again, the shifting. And so again, a really simple floor plans, very similar to what we did on that first multifamily project. Open space, kitchen loaded to the back with the garden off of the kitchen for a little barbecue area and raised planter bed. And then bedrooms to the top. And then again, to this point of adding something of value, we knew we didn't want the square footage to be such that it just didn't fit into the area, but we had this opportunity to go up a little bit higher. And so what we did is we created these roof terraces on the top of the building that gave us another opportunity to introduce some planting within the building footprint. That way everyone has their garden at the ground floor, the place where they can grow vegetables and they can have their barbecue set up. And then on the roof, they really get their backyard. They get a place that's really special where you get some really good natural light and some air. And it was really kind of stealing free space. You build the roof anyway, you might as well give people the opportunity to go up there. And so in this scheme, it really was about the expression of the block. It was about this really simple mass that was, kind of an atypical house, and shifting it back and forth. We called them the monopoly houses, that, they're just like how kids draw houses, and just making a really simple set of masses that are playful with a couple different materials. And so this one's, pretty successful, and we're in the process of getting this approved with the city right now. And it's funny because as simple as this is, and as much as it looks like a lot of other housing, the city in some ways doesn't know how to respond to it because it is a little different. They don't understand why we would have gardens on the roof, and the concern is, well, aren't these people going to look out at the neighbors, and they're going to see into the neighbors? And we say, well, how's it different than a window or a balcony? It's exactly the same scenario. You open your windows and you can see your neighbor, but things that are different, they challenge people, but you have to kind of be persistent with it. And then the second project that had the same or the similar site plan strategy was the one in Glendale. So again, 4-unit townhouse project. This one on subterranean parking. And so, again, shifting the masses back and forth and giving people the opportunity to have a little green space that they normally wouldn't have. Open floor plans, really basic, simple units, bedrooms. But on this one, where the first one was about the expression of the unit and the legibility of the unit, on this particular one, we figured out by making one additional shift in every other block, we could transform the building from something where it was really legible what the individual units were into something that really obscured it. That the legibility of the unit is shifted from something that's linear going in the direction of the site plan into something that's much more interlocked. And although the units are either a white block and a wood block, or an all wood block, all stucco block, wood and stucco, by that shift in plane, we were able to really transform this into something that was a lot less about expression of the module and a lot more about this interlocking. And that interlocking works both in plan and section. And again, pulling the landscape up into the building and giving people the opportunity to have some outdoor space in places and some greenery in places that you don't normally see. And those side by side. Basically the exact same footprint and the exact same size building. And so the last of the multifamily ones I'll show you today is one where we, like we do often, we'll look at a site and we'll look at the constraints on the site and we'll say, all right, what's our biggest challenge here? And how do we turn our biggest challenge on a site into our biggest opportunity to do something different? And in Glendale, the biggest issue that we were dealing with this particular site was that the zoning in the area basically wants everyone to build a pyramid. And I know you guys have a pyramid here. I just figured that out today, so I'll not do my pyramid joke. But that wasn't something we really wanted to do, because what ends up happening when you have strict rules like this is that all the buildings end up looking the same in an area. And it's one of our biggest challenges dealing with planning commissions and cities, is that they see the way a thing looks, it gets approved, and so then all of a sudden everything starts to look like it. And so what we figured out in sort of going through the code was that although there was these steps, these minimums and these averages, ultimately what they looked at was the average setback. And so we said, all right, I think we can figure out a way to sort of beat this system. And so what we did was we figured out if what really matters is the average setback, we can make these huge incisions into our building as represented by the cuts in the white block where the color spills in. And what these incisions did was it allowed us to bump up our average. So we could set our building all the way out to the minimum setback, but that cut in gave us the average number that we needed, and it allowed us to do something very different from what they were used to seeing. It also gave us the opportunity to, again, pull the gardens into the building, farther into the building, to provide not only private gardens for a couple of the units, but also these opportunities for these communal gardens that people could have picnic tables in and share. So really narrow footprint, very open plan like all of the others. One bedroom on the second floor, and then a master suite on the top. And all that stacked up got us to this. And so when we took this into the planning commission, you submit the drawings and then you wait a couple weeks and somebody calls you back. And we got really nervous because we got a call from the head of planning in this area, and he said, I want to meet with you guys on this. And we thought, maybe we're in a little bit of trouble for what we tried to do here. And he actually came in and, much to our surprise, said, I'm really excited that you guys figured out a way to do this because, we've got this issue in the city that everything is starting to look the same. And so it's really encouraging to see and to hear things like that, because you realize that although there are systems in place that drive us in certain directions, people really do respond to things that try hard and try to be a little bit more unique. And then in addition to those big cuts, we made a series of incisions into the building that allowed us to create a little bit of a rhythm and sort of a play within the mass. The cuts always have these boxed out windows just to define a different type of space. And for some reason, everything's a little squished in these on here, but the back of the building, just sort of getting a sense for that rhythm. And then, ultimately taking this parkway and pulling it into the building. Really, we talked a lot about making this feel like it was a series of blocks sitting in a park. And so one of my favorite professors in school, and I'm going to end on this one, he always used to say, when anyone would say, we're kind of playing around, that, this isn't play, this is serious business. But I never really bought that. I think that you can have a lot of fun, and I think that what we do should be fun. And that's the sort of last thing I'll talk about is one of the things we do in our office from time to time when we have a small project, a furniture design piece or a sculpture or something that's sort of manageable to quickly look at as a group. We do kiosks or things like that. What we'll do is we'll do a little charrette. So we'll get everyone in the office together, say, all right, everyone's got an hour, come up with some initial ideas for this problem. We get out the bottles of wine, we have some lunch in the afternoon, and we sort of work our way through the problem. And that's our way of giving everyone an opportunity to be creative. When a lot of times you'll get stuck in this, like, I'm the guy doing this, and it can get really mundane and pretty boring for people. And so we always like to do these things to give everyone an opportunity, not just to explore their own ideas, but an opportunity to let them sort of work their way into the methodology of the office and the thinking of the office. So this particular charrette was for a sculpture that was going to hang in the atrium of a 5-story lobby in San Francisco. So this was a space that Gensler had designed, and they never really knew what they were going to do in this skylight, but they knew they wanted something to hang up underneath. And they also needed to do something to get their 1% for the arts covered. And so they came to us and they said, hey, would you guys be interested in designing this thing that hangs up in this space? So this is Market Street in the foreground and this axial relationship between the street meeting that atrium. And of course we sort of jumped at the idea. So it wasn't the easiest thing in the world. We had to convince the planning commission that we were artists, which they didn't initially believe that architects were artists. But I threw together some paintings from college, and a short 12 months later, we had approval to design this piece of artwork. And so in this charrette, the ideas that really everyone was drawn to, and I think this is Angelino sort of considering San Francisco, but everyone was really drawn to the bay. Drawn to the biology of the bay, the topography of the bay, the refraction of light on the bay, and ultimately you can't do something in San Francisco without referencing the Golden Gate Bridge and the fog. And so the imagery that people brought, really was about the bay, and so we sort of ran with it, and everyone went back to their desks and started producing sketches and digital models. And one of the ideas that we were really drawn to in this was this idea of the cloud, the idea of the fog, that through pieces of aluminum, through something built, we could replicate the sort of ethereal the ethereal things that fog are about. And then the other thing that we were looking at was refraction, and how a refraction could manipulate a topography. And so through iteration in sort of looking at these ideas and honestly, and not being able to make up your mind, we sort of said, all right, let's start to look at this as a hybrid. Let's start to look at, all right, combining these ideas into something that embodies and captures both of the things that we're trying to achieve here. And so we started to look at this as, what if we have this vessel that sits within the fog, and as you move up these escalators through the space, the sort of understanding of this object fundamentally changes based on how these rods, how this fog obscures it or reveals it. And so we took this, we were working completely digitally, and it wasn't doing the things that we anticipated that it would. And what we realized was that the computer model wasn't doing the things that a physical model would. And so we started to prototype it. We built the atrium, got the space, set it up with lights, and then started prototyping this thing with, I think, 15 different variations that we made, looking at it as the field of pipes or fields of screens. And ultimately, we arrived at this, which was a series of 3.5-inch painted rods that were in a random pattern that we derived from a sine curve. We wrote a script in Rhino and basically worked out of Rhino and Grasshopper to create this sort of randomized field in a physical model. And so the thing was starting to work, and we were starting to be really happy with it. And so then we tested it, looking at it for scale and the site and the view angles for everything. And then ultimately, took this thing to planning, which we knew the biggest struggle we had with it was that how you convey this idea of something ethereal in something static. And so when we actually went to the city, we took a video of it that I unfortunately was not able to make work on my computer, but these are some screen captures from that video that they ultimately approved, and we were given the green light to move into production on. And so then from the physical model back into the digital, because of the complex geometries, this was really something that had to be analyzed with engineering software. And so some of the diagrams showing the deflection in the piece. And then that ultimately, once we were able to know it was secure and not going to move around too much in an earthquake, we started to work on the detailing and the panelization. And then ultimately, the thing became this. And they are currently installing the brackets for it. And so that's the last I'll show. One thing that I will add to the end of this is that none of this is possible without a really great team, and we have a really great team of people that's making all this stuff happen. So thank you. any questions. Oh boy. I got LEED certified. I took those tests a long time ago, and the LEED accreditation is an important thing in that I think that it gives you an opportunity to sort of study and learn on things that are really important for people to know. LEED as a thing, I have my doubts about it as a thing, but sustainable design, I think, is far more important. And I think that my biggest issue with LEED in general is the way that it analyzes buildings. I mean, in a lot of ways, I think what we need to be looking at is, what's the carbon footprint of the things we do? And it becomes more of a performance that you look at all the carbon that you're using, you add it up, a little bit more like the CASB system works. And I think with the point system that LEED has, you end up in this position where you go, okay, we need one more point. Let's put some carpet in a closet that it gets the rating that you need to get the point for carpet. And so in idea, I think it's very important. I think that the building codes need to be adjusted to make buildings more sustainable, because they're frankly the biggest consumers of energy that we have. I mean, the emissions that come from creating the electricity for our buildings are far worse than cars. So the sustainable part of what we do is super important. LEED is a thing. I encourage you to learn about it and maybe take the tests and do it, but it's not, I have some problems with it as a thing, not as an idea. I think the best advice I can give, speaking to that, is that you can't be afraid to throw away something you like. If you have a better idea, it's okay to say, and I think you see this in a lot of the schemes, there are ideas that you're drawn to and you love in schemes, but it's not always about that idea in the scheme. You can keep that idea in the back of your mind and come back to it later. I think what's important is that on the project by project basis, you get to the best result you can. And I think oftentimes what we do is we get so fixated on a certain idea that we become blind to the problems that it has with it. And I think it's really important to be able to step back from it and say, is it doing the things that I need it to? Is it the most successful way to deal with this? And when you realize that it maybe isn't, that the thing is being too forced, you gotta be confident enough to start over. You gotta give up on that idea and move on to the other idea. And just know that you can come back to those ideas later. It's not erased permanently. You learn from it, and those ideas never really go away. So just, it's courage, I think, is maybe the biggest lessons. Be okay with having a scheme you really love that you're not gonna show, because there's gonna be lots of possibility and lots of opportunity down the road to revisit those ideas. All right, thank you all.